Thank you. So welcome everybody that took the opportunity to join us today on this webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to share some information and answer some questions about the upcoming Industry Day in August. Can you switch to the agenda, please? This is what we have in the agenda for today. So we're going to have an introduction and some welcome remarks from Dr. Cady, the CTO for Platform One. And after that, we're going to run through the agenda, which is a brief explanation of what Platform One is. We're going to have some words from our contracting officer. I will provide some tips for success based on our previous event. And then the majority of the time is going to be allocated for the people out in the calling stations to ask questions. So without any further delay, Colonel Cady.
Thanks, Gil. So hi, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Camdon Cady. I'm the Platform One CTO. Thank you for coming to our first Industry Day webinar. This is the pre-event for our second ever Industry Day. So I'm really excited. Looks like we have over 60 people online. I really appreciate the interest. So really, I just want to say thank you to Gil and thank you to the CCTI team for putting this entire event together. A lot of work went into this to get people here today. So thank you. Really excited to have you here. Really excited. I hope you guys are thinking of some hard questions. There's nothing worse than dead air during a Q&A. So I'll throw that challenge out on the table. Really, that's all I had to say. And so I will turn it over to, I think that there's going to be Ron Betts giving the overview today.
Yeah, hey, thanks for the introduction. I'm Ron Betts. I go by Ronnie B. I'm with the customer experience team. I run the business account managers. So once folks are onboarded here at Platform One, we have a POC that it be specifically for the customer. Now, I'll just give a quick overview of how we tell the customer what we do here at Platform One. So Platform One, imagine I'm going to use a bowling alley analogy. Imagine you pull up to your favorite bowling alley. As you drive into the parking lot, there's these three big guys walking around their security. That's our twist lock, fortify, and sonar Q. They're walking around outside of our bowling alley and inside of our bowling alley to make sure everyone's safe. Now, our bowling alley is a private bowling alley. So in order to get in, you have to go through CNAP, which is considered our door, and AppGate, which is software. That's kind of the key fob. And with those two, you're able to get into the Party Bus bowling alley, which also takes care of the zero trust policy brought down by DoD. So we're starting to take care of a lot of your security issues. Now, before you come in, you're scanned, like you're going through the airport. If you don't meet the scan, if there's something on you that doesn't quite meet our environment, we just ask you to go out to the parking lot, take out whatever's in your pocket, and we'll scan you again, and you come on into our environment. Now, the next place that you always go to when you're at a bowling alley is the desk. Well, there at the desk, there are people like me. This is behind the desk. Our customer success team, our business account managers, our technical account managers, our cyber folks, anybody that's here to help you have a positive experience while you're here at Platform One. Now, the next place you go to is, of course, is out to the bowling alley, and you're putting on your bowling shoes, and you go, I don't have a bowling ball. Well, think of Iron Bank, what we provide here, as free bowling balls. When you look up, you have all the different colored bowling balls, different weights, different hole patterns for your fingers, all of that. Well, we have over 1,000 Iron Bank hardened containers for you to pull down to use. In fact, you could use them today. So that almost gets you to your almost an 80% solution for your developers to start working here at Platform One. Now, think of your bowling alley as the pipeline. We've built that for you here at Platform One. Then that is your bowling alley to do whatever games you want to play on it. Now, because it's typically in a big environment like your bowling alley, we have these walls. No one can look into yours, and you can't look into their bowling alley. So we take care of your proprietary issues or your other security concerns while you're in the bowling alley. Now, like a good bowling alley, at the back, you have the pins and the pin setting machine. Well, in the old days, just like we have at Platform One, we have pin setters. They're back there with their wrenches, and they're making sure that everything is up and working for you at all times while you're bowling. Now, because of we have that, so we've taken care of security, we've given you the building to work in, we've given you some Iron Bank capabilities, and we've given you a pipeline to work on. So really, for your developers, all they have to do, as I like to say, is bowl, drink beer, smoke cigarettes, and develop, just like any good bowling alley. Now, if you are like, oh, that's a lot of stuff, but we just really want to do it on our own, well, we have another organization called Big Bang. What Big Bang is they go find an abandoned building for you to develop in. So you can build we're going to give you a program manager or somebody to walk along with you, consulting if you want to stand up your own party bus lookalike. But you'll have to provide your own security, your own support, you have to build your own pipelines, aka bowling alley, and things like that. So that's what the party bus does for you. So that is, in little less than 5 minutes, an overview of what Platform One does in Party Bus and how your developers can show up here and start developing in record time. Now, one of the great things that we also supply is when you come in is we provide a certificate to field, and we can also get you the continuous authority to operate, ATO. And with those, you're able to not only bowl in our bowling alley, but also bring other folks in to see your product. Now, how long does this take? Well, just like going into a regular bowling alley, it really takes almost no time. Here at Platform One, it's no different. From the time a customer comes to us on the very first call to the time that you could have a developer bowling ranges between 30 to 90 days. And just like a good old bowling alley, it's relatively inexpensive when you compare to having to go build your own bowling alley at your place. So that's Platform One. Any questions? If not, we'll hand it over. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ronnie. I think next we have Major Walker to talk from the contracting side of the house.
All right, thank you. Again, my name is Major Jamel Walker. I'm the Deputy Contracting Branch Chief for the contracting shop that helps support some of the contracting actions for Platform One. So these next few slides, I just want to go over some contracting topics or tips for an actual industry day. But I also want to share our information, our contact information. So that email address there is going to be the organizational email box, so you'll be able to reach everyone in Platform One contracting. So feel free to use that inbox for various questions that you may have in terms of, possible future acquisitions or just any questions you may have that you would need to put in front of contracting to get a response. We do monitor that email box, and we try to respond to everything at least within 24 hours. But I just want to go over a little bit of a purpose of an industry day. We use it as a market research technique to really communicate some of the agency needs or upcoming requirements to industry. And so we also use industry day to just get that feedback from industry, so that way we can make sure that we're asking for clear and defined requirements, and industry is able to provide the feedback to make sure that we're really getting what we need. Additionally, it allows for the prime contractors and subcontractors to come together and develop those relationships that might be needed to be included on some of those contracts, whether you have a subcontractor relationship or you have some sort of teaming agreement. And again, that's just going to benefit the contract performance. A lot of times on industry day, there's going to be contractors that probably, maybe didn't know what Platform One does, or they, haven't been able to do any sort of requirements or fulfill any requirements for Platform One. But then there's also going to be personnel there or contractors there that have had their foot in the door with Platform One. So again, Industry Day is there to help develop relationships, but then also to help us sort of communicate some of our future requirements. And the key takeaway for an Industry Day is just to collaborate with the government and industry peers. So that's what this Industry Day will ultimately be. There's going to be a lot of time where the contractors are going to be in a room talking to one another, sharing contact information. And then we're also going to have contracting officers there on site as well to be able to answer any questions that may come up. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this particular industry day is going to be in support of the AFWERX Open Topic Directive Phase 2 solicitation. So communication is going to mostly be limited to that requirement. I don't foresee us talking about any other future requirements that we may have for Platform One, but in the event that we do, those conversations can be held at the industry day. Again, as you already know, contract officers are the only personnel allowed to enter into agreements or contracts. So again, there's not going to be any promises coming out of this industry day. So I just want to make that clear up front. But depending on the down selects that will occur for this industry day, because we are, supporting the AFWERX Open Topic. So there will be some down selects there, but again, I do not believe that we're going to limit, who all can show up to the industry day. And like I said earlier, there will be CEOs on site, and we're always available at the email address that I showed you earlier to answer any questions or concerns that you may have. And then additionally, we get a lot of the questions about how can small businesses really compete against some of the large businesses? Well, I'll tell you that we do have just like any other Air Force organization or DoD organization, we do have a requirement to support small businesses by doing small business set-asides and things like that. And I would say that we're very successful with our small business program and making sure that we pretty much share the wealth with small businesses. But we do know that comes at a cost, right? Because, creating various proposals and things like that takes time, takes money, and definitely experience. And so I wanted to share the APEX accelerators. I think it's the only official government contracting resource for small businesses. Usually it's free of charge. It's paid for by an agreement with DoD and APEX. This used to be called the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, but now they've renamed to APEX Accelerator. So you can always reach out to them and go to their website to be assigned to the personnel that are assigned to your AOR, to your location. So please utilize that resource to help assist you with building any sort of presentations that you may be wanting to give or submit for this contracting or for this solicitation effort. And without any further delay, I'm going to turn it back over to Lieutenant Colonel Cady.
Over to you, Gil.
All right. So if you can put the slides for our next section. All right, my name is Gil Rosario. I support Dr. Cady here, Platform One, and I decided to put 2 or 3 slides together with some observations based on previous events to pass to others as what I will call tips for success. Little things that you can pay attention to when you put together your presentations and your delivery to help you be successful. Please go to the next one. The proposal, if you're trying to offer a business to Platform One, spend some time trying to understand what Platform One is. We have a good web page, presence on the web that tells you what Platform One is and what we do, but that will help you decide if the particular capability that you have will provide value added to the platform and where you could fit. If you have questions and you go there to the web pages that you cannot answer by looking at the web pages, there are links there to ask for a contact to provide you information. So I will ask everybody to spend some time looking at them so have an idea what Platform One is and what it does and give you an image of what your particular offering could do for us. Make sure that your proposal is clear, concise, and on point. If you're going to use any kind of acronyms, make sure that you spell them out and you explain them. It makes it easier for us here to understand what we're trying to do. Try to go on simple language. If it doesn't pass the grandmother test, meaning that if you give it to grandma and she reads it and she understands it, you probably did a good job. But try to avoid the jargon as best you can and explain in simple terms what it is that you're bringing forward. And depending on the question that we're posing, try to make sure that you understand the question and you answer it fully so we can have a good idea and picture what it is that you're bringing forward and how that can help Platform One move forward with the business. What are the technical underpinnings of your proposal? Make sure you understand that you can articulate it clearly and effectively. How your approach is effective, is efficient, is it suitable to the platform and the way we do business? And then you can compare and contrast your approach versus other different approaches in that same area. That helps you differentiate yourself from other offerings. This sounds, it should be always looked at, but sometimes people miss it. Have somebody check your materials before you move them forward, because this can detract from your main topic. So if you need to be rating your material and you have misspellings and issues like that, it takes away from the merits of your presentation. It doesn't help you present a good image. Go to the next one. If you're going to have somebody present your company's offering to Platform One, a person should be able to delve into the tech details of what that offering is. If you have a group of people that work in your team, it's not feasible many times to bring a lot of people to the presentation, but that does not mean that you cannot reach back to them through technologies in a phone call or a teleconference call. So the main person making the presentation on your behalf should be well versed on the offering and should be able to answer questions. But if you need somebody to back that person up, it's okay to have a second person there or to reach out to them. We have had this approach in the past and it works fine. And the main point being is, make sure that you can explain and articulate and answer questions that logically follow from the presentation that you're making. If you want to use a graphic, a video, a small animation to augment your point, that is fine. Make sure that it's legible. For example, don't use yellow letters on a white background. It's hard to read. And if you're going to use some kind of simulation or depiction that uses movement on the screen, try to keep it on point to the area you're trying to explain. Don't make that to be the totality of your presentation. And finally, make the case. Tell us, what is the value out of what you're bringing forward to Platform One. Go to the next slide, please. The customer memorandum. So for those that may make it to the final phase and go to the down selection, there's some forms that need to be filled out, like every process in the government. And take a look at what is required. This information is available online, but if you have trouble finding it, let us know. We'll help you out. Having done some homework on this early, understanding what is required on the paperwork, will go a long way to help you move forward with your effort. We're going to allocate some time at the end of the selection to sit down with every company that gets picked to go over this, but those that have demonstrated good success normally have done this. They have done the early homework. They come prepared. Most of the paperwork is already online. And then there's a particular area on the paperwork that we need to be filling out, which is the Defense Mission Needs Statement. That's an area that Dr. Cady will help you with. He will provide you the narrative for that particular section. But it's good to understand what is required in the paperwork and be aware and not try to find out once you get selected. It allows you to move faster, more efficiently, and effectively in the process. Go to the next one. I think that's the last one.
Yeah, that's all of them. That's it.
All right. So this pretty much covers the portion of this webinar where we're actually doing the talking and presenting information. Like I said at the beginning, the main goal of this particular engagement is to allow for you in the field to ask questions to Platform One. So without any further delays, I wrote down 2 questions if you want to go over them when we get started.
Sure. So the first question, so are our environments based on Cloud One? Yes, they are. So all of the Platform One workloads run within Cloud One. That being said, I would describe it as engineering partners with Cloud One, which means we work hand in hand with them. So while all of our workloads do run there, it would not be accurate to say that the Platform One environment looks exactly like the environment that the Cloud One would hand to any application to walk through the door looking for hosting services over there. So we work with them to enable our particular brand of DevSecOps capabilities. Second question, this is a great one. I should have had it in front of me, the deadline for the direct to phase 2 submission. I don't have that in front of me. You can find that on the AFWERX website for the Open Topic D2P2 call, or perhaps someone from Catalyst can put it in the chat if you have that page up. Would you mind opening up the chat?
Yeah, are you guys able to see the chat, or I can start calling some of these out?
We can if we click the three dots. Okay.
Now we have it.
So if you have a D2P2 that's selectable, not funded, should we still apply to pitch? So I would say yes, if you think that either platform one is a good fit and we weren't your customer for your previous memorandum, or if either your product or the world around us has changed enough to make it relevant. So if we signed an MOU with you last time and it was selectable, not funded, and nothing's really changed, then we can probably talk outside of Industry Day about other avenues for getting access to you. Are you using AWS? Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next question. So we are using AWS Cloud. That being said, we do not. So I'll take a step back. So a lot of when we talk about platform one, I think it's really important to say, look, we have 4 different customer facing products or services, from CNAP to Iron Bank to Big Bang to Party Bus. Party Bus being a PaaS that people can onboard to tends to dominate the conversation. Oftentimes we're talking about being on platform one, right? And so answering from a Party Bus perspective, yes, we use AWS Cloud, but for applications being developed on Party Bus, we don't present any raw AWS services to them. It's all containerized deployments on a Kubernetes platform that we run on behalf of the developers. So if an application that's being developed on Party Bus is architected around AWS services, so if you went, there's a million different guides out there for how to build Instagram in 3 hours using nothing but Lambda and DynamoDB, right? Not how applications get developed on Party Bus. That being said, if we're going to run something, if it's part of the platform layer, we do have access to AWS Cloud Services. We try to not lean too deeply into any of the more exotic ones, because we do want to maintain compatibility with different cloud environments. We're an enterprise provider for DevSecOps, so us figuring out how to do something in AWS doesn't help anyone else that needs to do the same thing in Azure, on-prem, or something like that. As far as the compliance questions that were in there, the NIST 853 is the big one there. Software solutions are not required to be open source. No, definitely not. We run plenty of things that are not open source, although we do love open source software and contribute back to it when we can. Yeah, so that's a great question, Andrew. So would I be able to speak to the most common kinds of complaints, things like that? So I'll point you back to our focus areas that we put out. So when it comes to specifically on Iron Bank, but also on Party Bus, vulnerability discovery and management is a huge part of the DevOps game in the DoD. I don't think that CVEs are the end-all be-all of security, but the fact of the matter is we have scanners that find CVEs, and they have to be adjudicated. And so tools that can help you discover, eliminate false positives, figure out whether or not you're actually vulnerable in a particular configuration in a particular environment, and then patch appropriately. Those are great tools. We'd like to see more of those. Also, so again, CVEs are not the end-all be-all. How do you discover new issues with code before you get them to production? I personally think that with the compute power that we have available to us today, we are ripe for quite a bit of disruption in the code analysis space. I can't tell you whether or not that's going to be AI and ML, whether it's going to be LLMs or something else, or whether it's going to be just a significantly better mousetrap for doing static or dynamic analysis. But the name of the game is really is shifting everything left. So how do we how do we discover issues with code faster? How do we help developers fix those issues and not just bog them down with pages and pages of findings and warnings and literally telling them that their code smells bad? So that's one of our focus areas. Again, compliance and governance. We talked a little bit about continuous ATO. We like to say we do DevSecOps. Both of those imply that you're continuously checking compliance and governance. You're not just getting an ATO, putting together a whole package that captures a point in time, getting an ATO and coasting for 3 years. It's by the minute, by the hour, by the code commit, by the day. What is the security posture of the environment? Those are really easy words to say compared to actually implementing that in real time. So that's the compliance and governance piece. And then automation and orchestration. The only way to scale at speed and without ballooning costs is to automate. So we're always looking, Kubernetes is a great operating system, but it needs a lot of tooling around it to make it truly useful. So we're always looking for stuff there. If you have the mouse, are you able to scroll up a little bit? Okay, I think I somewhat answered Andrew's question. Okay, the next one. Compliance and governance requirements. Yeah, so GRC, we are interested in GRC tools, but not just that. So yeah, 853 or RMF, that definitely applies. So I would say all of the above, right? So there is a compliance piece of this. We do need to keep a system security plan up to date. We do need to report upwards to the DAF, CISO, and CIO and other folks about our compliance posture. At the end of the day, I, Camden, am convinced that I can be 100% compliant. Well, I don't think you can actually be compliant with every DoD policy because I think that they are mutually exclusive. That being said, even if you were to somehow achieve 100% compliance with all DoD policies, you could build a system that was that compliant and still had exploitable vulnerabilities in it. So I am also concerned about application security. I'm also concerned about, what is the configuration of a cloud account? I'm concerned about in a way that respects users' privacy and their rights. How do I monitor user behavior to understand when a person or their account or their machine has been compromised and should no longer be granted access to resources? So it really is all of the above. I'm not trying to steer. I left these broad on purpose because it's not about, well, I want to go find the best GRC tool. It's about how do I do DevSecOps at scale? What does that look like in the future?
To manage and understand our risk.
Yes. Okay, so yes, this industry day, we are focusing on the D2P2 call. So I would say, so if you have a phase one and you want to apply under the regular phase 1 to phase 2 call, I think it's fine to go ahead and, put your name in the hat through the portal for this industry day, because those are around the same time. What are our primary data points for vulnerabilities? So specifically on Iron Bank, today we run Anchor Enterprise. We run Twistlock. All that data is made public. So both our pipeline configurations, but then all those findings and their related adjudications are made public in our vulnerability assessment tracker, the VAT. And so you can see what we do today on Iron Bank. So of particular interest to me as scientific research areas are, if I'm given 10 different SBOMs for a container image and 10 different lists of vulnerabilities from scanners, how do I, apply a somewhat of a Kalman filter type concept to those so that I can get one good site picture? I think there are products on the market that are trying to do that today. It's not an easy problem, I'll say that. Yeah, the next set of zero trust architecture challenges to move closer to optimal state. So one, and this is near and dear to my heart as a member of the DoD, legacy software, right? So if you take a zero trust architecture and the 150 or 170 or whatever it is, different activities that are performed under the DoD CIO's model for zero trust. If I'm building an application from scratch and deploying it on a platform that I get to build, that works. As soon as I have to take that application and interface with databases and users and services from other places within the DoD, some of which have hired the last remaining, COBOL engineer with a SCI security clearance, that gets really difficult. And so the other thing that makes zero trust difficult within the DoD, I think, is that we have silos of excellence. So the Navy has their systems, the Air Force has their systems. Even within the Air Force, the Department of the Air Force, we obviously have the Space Force and the Air Force. Even within just the U.S. Air Force, we have the IT community, we have the operational community, and then there's the OT community, which is totally separate from any of that. How do you get all those things to talk to each other without just whitelisting broad swaths of network connectivity, which is really not very zero trusty, which is a highly technical description of the world right there. How's the ATO documentation lifecycle managed at this time? Kelly, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I can talk to that one. It's definitely a challenge when you start looking at DevSecOps and then ATO lifecycle management for documentation. Because when you go back over the traditional RMF roles, ATO documentation is designed for your legacy on-prem system that you're reviewing once every 3 years, and it's not truly kept up to date much past 30 seconds after the point your ATO has been signed. As we start moving forward across the enterprise to go into a continuous ATO process, that means you need a lot more real-time data to feed into it. Your ATO documentation sets your baseline that you are starting from, with the understanding that your AO, your authorizing official, and your security control assessors are actually able to look at your system in near real time to validate that you're still good as you go through that process. So that is one of the challenges that you have to deal with zero trust as you start looking at the new RMF lifecycle and continuous ATOs, is how do you get that real-time monitoring for your active cyber defense, your continuous monitoring moving forward, and how do you stay on top of all of that? Simple answer is compliance is code, it is automation, but that, like Camden said earlier, is much easier to say than it is to accomplish.
Thanks, Kelly. So there's a question there about automation, response, and orchestration. So absolutely, I'm a huge fan of compensating controls instead of just rolling out patches. Stop updating things if you can just turn off functionality, right? That you don't need. I love that. Just make the attack surface smaller. So I think, the other piece of that is, let's say we do need to patch. What actually drives the behavior that we see today, which is that it takes sometimes upwards of months to deploy an update? It's a lack of good testing capability, so that we don't have confidence in our ability to deploy that update without breaking users. So I think that those are, again, difficult problems that the software development community has been wrangling with since we started writing software. So by no means do I expect a magic bullet there. When I talk about orchestration, not so much from a container perspective. Kubernetes, like I said, Kubernetes is a great operating system. It just needs a lot of tooling around it to make it really, truly useful. Understanding that orchestration to me, when I say that, it's understanding the state of what we have deployed, making sure that we don't drift from what we want to have, having insights into it, and then kind of a distributed model where each team can take the actions appropriate at their level, but only those actions, and without compromising the system overall. So that encompasses everything. I'm not looking for someone to pitch me on a replacement for Kubernetes, right? But what I am looking for is, how do you run what's the latest and greatest for running, massively multi-user platforms with a distributed model of responsibility? Yeah, so that's great. We only have an hour today, so the gaps to close when it comes to static analysis and dynamic analysis tooling. So one, they're both loud, right? Particularly static analysis. They're noisy. So I also don't think that they find deep bugs, particularly dynamic analysis. So how do you get your error rates down with those? And then frankly, how do you provide better feedback to developers so that you're helping them instead of your system just being yet another hurdle between them and production? Yeah, so what sort of automated testing tools are we doing? So I will say on Iron Bank today, we're only starting to dip our toes in the water of doing automated testing of container images. On Party Bus, we have a wide variety of testing frameworks that are in use. And I think that's a place where we could mature. And so I'll leave that one pretty open. We also do run some tooling to simulate the different AWS regions so that we don't go deploy something in IL5 or IL6 that's not going to eventually work. So those environments are not like commercial AWS all the time. Are we open to a pitch for an alternative to AppGate? Yes and no. So in terms of the Air Force intends to do, full source selection activities for an enterprise software defined perimeter. That is not Platform One's job. We run AppGate because that's not online yet, right? Going back to zero trust challenges across the enterprise, I am very interested in how do we get different software defined perimeters to work together without each of the SDPs just being one drawbridge across a moat that is our non-zero trust squishy center, right? That we've historically had. So I don't want to reduce those things to just being VPNs onto a wide open network. So I am interested to hear alternatives there. In terms of if Platform One were to make the decision to replace our SDP with a different SDP, I think you would find a solicitation out on sam.gov for that. That's not the purpose of Industry Day. Yeah, so I think the first metric that comes to mind when we evaluate the security posture of our environment and what the impact of a particular piece of software would be are the Iron Bank scores, so the ABC and ORA scores. They're not exactly metrics or KPIs, but when we're evaluating software that we might bring into the platform layer, we do ask a series of questions. So one, is this self-hostable, right? There's a lot of really great SaaS offerings out there that are in no way appropriate to use for the DoD. That's kind of a hard stop. So is it self-hostable? Question one. Two, is it containerized? We run all of our software on Kubernetes, virtually all of our software on Kubernetes. If I have to stand up a bespoke Windows box to run your stuff, that's a huge load on my team, and I'm probably not going to do that. So containerized software, much preferable. Then, are you willing to put it in Iron Bank and put it through that pipeline and have the visibility into the security posture? It's a lot easier for me to justify to the CISO if I can hand them that common, information about that container image. So I guess then we get into the other things, which is, what is your licensing model? Is it something that's going to be easy for us to actually calculate the costs and do business with you? Or is it, users that log in on Tuesdays cost 3 times as much as those that log in on Thursdays, except on months that have a prime number of days in them. Then Fridays are the cheap day, right? It's difficult for us to enter into those agreements because I can't understand what the impact's going to be. So I think the licensing model does play into effect. Is it by core? Is it by user? Is it just a site license? Like those things all matter when we're making decisions. Yeah, so if you go to p1.dso.mil, I've got a couple of diagrams that have what tools we use. I'll say a few off the top of my head, but I want to point you to the website in case I miss any. So I mentioned on Iron Bank, we're using Anchor, we're using Twistlock, we're using OpenSCAP for compliance, like stig checking. Over on Party Bus, we're currently using Fortify, we're using SonarCube, we're using Dependency Check. Yeah, Dependency Check. I believe they're also using OpenSCAP. This is all in the diagram under the Party Bus section on the website. So we're using a lot of commercial tooling. So I'll put this out there as a challenge statement to folks, right? So there's a lot of tooling out there, and this is incomprehensible to me as a scientist, but I get a lot of, slick sheets or presentations about a tool that shows me what that tool does. And the folks showing me the slick sheet fully acknowledge that they have competitors in the space. And at no point is there a comparison done between them and their competitor. Like, look, I do this thing that you're paying another tool to do today. And I ask, well, how are they different? I'm like, that's a really interesting question. And I don't get anything back. So I'll just say, if you're making a case to replace a tool that you see in our catalog, it should probably be better, cheaper, faster, or some combination of at least one of the three. And you might want to come with measurements or a story or something like that. GPUs are available by exception. So we don't make them generally available to folks because cloud-based GPUs are expensive. I guess they're heavy, so it's hard to keep them in the cloud. But for specific tasks, we do make them available. Preference on licensing model. Yeah, I totally opened us up to that. Jay, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I would say the preference for the licensing model would usually be by users. That's something that's been easy for us, but I would also add to that a mechanism for tracking the amount of users. I think for us, it gets a little bit tricky when we have some customers that will utilize a license for a few months, but then they won't utilize it. So, us being able to either backfill that license and reuse it, or if that license is just going to go away. I think we prefer to, if we're going to buy 60,000 users for a license, we expect to be able to use that license, assign it out to people, and then pull it back if we need to reassign out to others throughout that period of performance. Another thing that we also look for in terms of like licensing model, sometimes we know that, software changes yearly, but we do sometimes ask for option periods. Upwards of about maybe 2 option periods, which could be a year. So that does come into play sometimes for some of the licenses that we procure. And then, of course, we always have the enterprise option, but sometimes it ends up being a little bit more pricey than what we really want to pay. But those are the common trends that I've seen here for some of our licensing models. If there are any other suggestions or ways that we can maybe improve that, I'm game to hear that. Did I answer the question?
You did. I think so. Thank you.
Still have another 50 minutes or so left. Any more questions out in the field?
Yeah, don't be shy to ask. This is a rare opportunity to get Camden sit down, answer open questions.
Yes. So there's Catalyst Campus has a link that they're distributing for signing up for pitch slots. I will say, I just wanted to say, based on the last experience, we got on the order of 10 times as many applications as we could feasibly handle for pitch day. So if you did apply before, or if you applied this time and are not selected, there was some really cool stuff that we just fell below the cut line last time. We all, on the government side, all of us that were in all the pitches, like that was exhausting. It was great, but it was exhausting. Like I don't know how we would have shoveled more into that time period. So.
And we actually, the one that we held in May, we budgeted 2 days. Based on what we learned that one, we added an extra day for this one. So this one is going to run Tuesday through Thursday, the week that we're having the event. For that particular reason, we want to make sure that we have more comfortable time to have more quality time to listen to people and have conversations. So that was a lesson learned from the previous one.
So I did miss a question in the chat there. I think that is a really good, it's up at the top right there. So how much weight do we give to, cost versus performance for solutions is what it comes down to. So look, I live within the budget that Congress sets for us. And as CTO, I don't technically have a budget. So it's really easy to do the math there. But so that being said, I think everyone out here has probably seen, if you haven't, Google it, what senior leadership in the Air Force has been saying about great power competition. We're not here to make money, we in the DoD, right? I love coding, but I'm not here to have fun. I'm here because the software that we deliver is going to be used to enable warfighting capabilities if something goes really wrong across the world and we end up in a conflict with a peer competitor. So the folks that we're up against that are trying to break into our systems, that are trying to make our systems ineffective, are top tier adversaries, and we're no longer shying away from that reality. So if your solution is better, if it gives us capability we don't have today, then that's on the table. This is not a lowest cost, technically acceptable environment that we live in, right? We have to win. This is a competition. Okay, so if your solution runs on its own Kubernetes deployment, that is not a deal breaker a priori, but it's a much more difficult conversation to have because I'd like to understand why you need to run over on your own cluster.
Excuse me, sir. I need to ask a question.
Yep.
Do you guys mind if we close this wall?
Go for it. Yep. I know it takes like a full minute and a half or something.
Is that switch tight on this side? Switch.
Yeah, he's just trying not to chop Kelly's head off.
It'll fit.
It comes down the middle. I don't know that we're ready to say the number of customer memorandums that we're going to be signing at the August Industry Day. And look, I want to go back. I'm going to revisit the question right before that. So we're an enterprise provider, right? And what that means is while we do run Party Bus as a PaaS, the things that go into Iron Bank and the products that make it into Big Bang are deployed in a wide number of environments, right? These things are deployed on air-gapped networks. They're deployed on things that are in motion around the world. They're deployed in all sorts of different cloud environments at all sorts of different impact levels. If Platform One goes and works with someone to get something working in our environment that has a very non-standard deployment methodology, that can solve a problem for Platform One. But I'm not chartered to solve my problems. I'm chartered to solve problems for a bunch of folks across the DoD. And so it's not to say we won't consider it, but that's why if we come across as such absolutists about, no, this needs to have a common deployment pattern, this needs to be self-hostable, this can't dial home for license keys, this can't dial home for license and count. I understand that you want to track where users are clicking because it's part of your user experience measurement, but that's a no-go. Like, that is why. It's because of the wide variety of places that our tech stack is deployed.
Or this one.
What about that other remediation one? Yeah. I think we talked about that. Yeah. So it's possible we missed some questions in the chat. So if you don't feel like you got yours answered, go ahead and post it again. Suffering from human limitations here. So, but I'll try to be better next time.
The question about the recording is correct. It's being recorded, and we're going to have a link for those people that may have missed the opportunity to be here today, so they can listen to the entire conversation, as well as those of you that are here today that may want to go back and revisit some of the answers that Dr. Cady provided. We got a few minutes left, about 5 or 7 minutes. So any additional questions from the field? I think we had good questions. Hopefully we'd answer all of them fully for you. And there's an opportunity also to contact us. If you go to the Platform One website, there are linkages there where you can access and get in touch with us.
Yeah, and I do want to drop in here. Deadline for the application is July 15th. So be sure that you have that fully submitted by that date to be eligible.
Any other questions from the field?
Nope. So the SM Apply is the platform for applying to Industry Day. Post Industry Day, the regular SBIR portal application process, you'll take the letter that comes out of Industry Day and put it as part of your broader SBIR application in the regular portal over there. Okay, so I will say, so I appreciate everyone, taking your time today. I'll foot stomp, p1.dso.mil is our website. We do keep that actively up to date. We are surprisingly active on LinkedIn for a government organization. I also have a number of people that make sure that relevant announcements go out on sam.gov. And so those are great places, to keep up with what's going on at Platform One. I think we linked to the DoD Platform One YouTube page as well. That one's a little bit nascent, but becoming more active. So again, regardless of whether or not you apply to Industry Day, regardless of whether or not you are chosen to attend, I hope that you'll keep up with us across the appropriate platforms, because there's always new stuff coming down the pipe.
Before we let you go, if you guys have any feedback about this particular webinar, something you like that you would like to see in the future, or something that we can improve upon and do better, you can provide that feedback also through the linkages on the Platform One website. We're always interested in listening from people in the field, how we can be more effective doing business with you.
Yep.
Thank you.
There is one more question that popped up in the chat. So non-infrastructure applications, so, applications for mechanical engineers or procurement professionals. So in my mind, and the way I see the world, those applications are eventually going to join, the 2020s, and they're going to end up containerized and running inside of a web browser. And at that point, I really hope that folks consider putting those into Iron Bank and contributing Helm charts for Big Bang with those. Will I ever run those as a service for other organizations? I think that's unlikely. But we want to be there to help other organizations run those. Today's digital engineering tools, very powerful, very, very, very not containerized and modern. So that's just Camden's opinion on those applications. Okay. I think we have exhausted people's keyboards.
Yeah, I've reached the point of marginal return.
Yeah, looks like we're all done with questions. Appreciate everybody taking their time, jumping on here, asking questions. Appreciate P1 leadership as well, jumping in, answering questions. Keep an eye on our LinkedIn page. We'll continue to update and remind for the deadline for Industry Day. It will be taking place at Catalyst Campus in Colorado Springs. So keep that in mind if you are selected. If you're not around the Colorado area, you will be traveling in for that. So thank you all so much. Appreciate your time. The recording should be up hopefully by the end of the week on our YouTube page. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Out.